Chapter 2 homework review questions 1, 2, 4, 9, and 14. The first question, what is a variable? Variable is a characteristic that varies from one person to another person or one thing to another thing. Whatever characteristic varies, that's a variable. Two main types of variables, quantitative variables and qualitative variables. Quantitative variables are the numerical variables. If you talk about numbers, that's quantitative. But if you cannot talk about the numbers, if you talk about categories, that's going to be qualitative variable. Two types of quantitative variables is discrete variables and continuous variables. If you can list the variables, that's going to be discrete. But if you can, if you talk about intervals, that's going to be continuous variables. What are data? Values of a variable is data. So you have a variable and you have some same or different values for that. That's going to be those values are going to be the data. How is data type determined? So if you want to determine the data type, you just look at the variables. What type of variable you have, that type of data you have. Okay, what is it for qualitative data set? What is a frequency distribution? Frequency distribution, you list the values and you list their frequencies. So to list the frequency, you can make tallies. You can put a tally each time you observe the value, and then when you add them up, you get the frequency. That's the frequency distribution. What is a relative frequency distribution? You actually use the frequency for the values, but the only difference is you find a total observation, number for the observation, and then you divide the frequency by the total observations. So that's going to be a decimal, or you can use fractions for that. So the total observation, the total number is going to be 1 in here. That's called relative frequency distribution, and we use this relative frequency distribution for the graphical displays. So what are the two main types of graphical displays for qualitative data? One of them is pie charts and the other one is bar charts. For both of them you use relative frequency. So you get the relative frequency and you divide the pie accordingly using that relative frequencies, and you place the bars, you raise the bar until you get the number for the relative frequency for that value. This is how you use pie charts and bar charts. A quantitative data set has been grouped by using limit grouping with equal width classes of width 5. The class limits are whole numbers, so if the class mark of the first class is 8, what are its lower and upper limits? How you find the class mark is you get the lower limit and the upper limit and add them up and divide by 2. So what two numbers, when you add them up and divide by 2, gives you 8. I said that, let's say the first one is A because they all are whole numbers, and if the width is 5, it means that there's 5 numbers in here. So A plus 1, A plus 2, A plus 3, A plus 4. The lower limit is going to be A and upper limit is going to be A plus 4. When you add them up, A plus 4, and divide by 2, you should get 8. And you just solve for A is going to be 6, which means that lower limit is 6 and upper limit is going to be 6 plus 4, which is 10. So you have 6 and 10. What's the class mark of the second class? We do the same thing. If the first class is 6 to 10, the second class should be 11 to 15. You add them up, the lower limit of the class and the upper limit of the class, and divide by 2. 11 plus 15 divided by 2 is going to be 13. What are the lower and upper limits of the third class? If this is the second class, 11 to 15, third class is going to be 16 to 20. That's the answer. Which class would contain an observation of 28? This is third class. The fourth class is going to be 21 to 25. Fifth class is going to be 26 to 30. And 28 falls in the fifth class. The curves correspond to the distribution shapes. So bell-shaped curve looks like that for your data. If it's mostly symmetrical or irregular data, it looks like bell-shaped, like that. Right skewed, the data is skewed to the right. Reverse J-shaped, it's like that. And uniform is like if you have all the same values, that's gonna be the uniform.